Let's talk about capturing light and shadows in your artwork. First, to have a shadow, you must first have a light source. The lightest area where the light directly hits is called the highlight. And then the side opposite where the light can't get to is called the shadow. We're going to keep studying the highlights and shadows as we look at some of the illustrations in this book called Snowmen at Night. Now, as you look, I want you to notice the light source. I want you to notice some of the highlights, and I want you to notice some of the shadows that you see in this book. I also want you to pay attention to all of the fun activities that these snowmen are doing. So look for light source, look for shadows, and look for highlights as we're going through these pictures. All right, let's begin. Get out your brown piece of paper that will keep your area clean. Get your pencil and get your purple piece of paper out. You may also want to grab just some scratch pieces of paper that you can kind of do some scratch drawings before you put it on the real one. You can notice here I did some scratch drawings first of some different activities that I would want my snowmen to do, like sledding and throwing snowballs and handstands and sliding on ice. Now I'm going to go over some examples of how I did some of these. Each one I started with the head, and then I built the body. Notice this one for the throwing of the snowball. The body's kind of angled. And you want to have a three-tiered snowman. So in this one, set it up. See how it's kind of at a diagonal. And then draw your face in, kind of have an idea of where you want those facial features and maybe what you want on the head in the way of a hat or earmuffs or something. It doesn't have to be perfect. You are going to end up coloring over this with oil pastels. But get a general idea of where you want things on the page. Also, you can add in a scarf. And as you are adding in things like scarves and hats, think about the movement of that piece. Like as you're throwing a ball, the scarf would move as well. So notice how I've tried to make the scarf at a certain angle, and then the hand would be at a certain angle, or the stick hand. And then in this case, I put in a stack of balls, of snowballs. And then last but not least, you need to determine where you want your light source to be. And the light source that we're going to be putting in is a moon, kind of like in the Snowmen at Night book. Now I'm going to set that one aside, and I'm going to show you another one of the snowmen that I drew, in case you might be interested in drawing a snowman that's sliding on its stomach. Now this one, notice I turned the paper horizontally. You don't have to do your project in a portrait mode. You can do it in a landscape mode just like this. Again, I drew the head first and then built the body off of it as I think about, how would this snowman be contorted as he's doing this particular action. And you don't have to do either of these, but I'm just showing you some ideas that you could do yourself. Again, once you have the basic build of the body, then add in the details like the scarves and think about, if I have this scarf in here, what's the action movement doing to that scarf? And in this one, if my snowman's sliding forward, then that scarf is getting kind of blown back next to his body. And what's the angle of the nose? And maybe I want a hat on this one. So just think through those different ideas that you want to include in your picture, like what's the angle of the arm going to be. And then once you've built your body and decorated your snowman, you can think about, what's the area around it kind of looking like. So in this one, I added a bench and I tried to make it look like this snowman was sliding on some ice. And then don't forget to add in where your light source is. Again, it's going to be a moon. All right, now I'm going to try drawing a snowman that's sledding. Again, you figure out what alignment you want for your paper, whether horizontal or vertical and portrait or landscape mode. In this example, I drew the sled first and tried to get the angle of the mountain and the hill that this snowman's on. And then I started to build the body of the snowman on it. And this is a little different than what I did with the others, because remember with the others I started with the head. And this one I'm starting with the body, the bottom, and building up. And then after I draw in those circles, I'm going to erase those parts that wouldn't be there. Okay, now for some of the details, like the sled handles and the rope, and then the angle of the arms holding that rope, and the mittens that the snowman's wearing, and again, things like the scarf and the buttons and the decorations on the face. And this time, I thought kind of about where the nose would be pointed, because this snowman's pointed downhill. And again, remember, what's the feel of the scarf that's getting blown in the wind? So think about all these different things as you're making your snowman. Don't put too many details in, because you're going to color over them. Okay, and then once you're done with your snowman, start working on the area around it, like I'm drawing in the hill and the sled, and again, the light source. Okay, now we're done with that one, and I ran out of colored paper, so I'm just going to kind of go over what I did with the upside down snowman. And again, this one I started with the base and then drew the 3 circles down. And usually when you start with the base, you have to do some erasing. So just realize that, draw in the light source, and then don't forget your scarf and what would happen to your scarf and whatever action the person's doing, or not the person, the snowman's doing. And that's kind of the same idea here. All right, so you've seen me practice with about 4 different ideas of snowmen. Don't forget, when you start yours, write your full name and your in-person teacher on the back of your piece of paper once you've decided what alignment to make it, and go ahead and draw your snowman. All right, now let's work on coloring our snowman. Get out your oil pastels, and obviously you're going to need to use your white first. Okay, in this example, I'm going to outline first all of the areas that I want to be white, jumping over the places that are not white. You can also choose a color for your light source of the moon. I chose white and yellow to use, and just fill it in. You can even make kind of a halo around it. Now at this point I want you to think through, okay, this is the light source, this is the direction the light's coming from, so that's the side that the highlight needs to be on. So these portions will need to be lighter in color on the side that the light source directly hits. Now I'm about to make a mistake and go ahead and start doing some of the details. Don't make my mistake. Wait until after you've actually colored in your white snowman with the white before doing any of the face details. Now we're going to use blue for our shadow, and so you want to choose the opposite side of the snowman from the light source to add in the blue shadows. Now notice the direction that I'm using. I'm following the shape of the ball shape with the shadow blue color. And then once I've added in the shadow blue color, then I'm going to go back and take the white for the snow and use that to work into that blue shadow area to help blend it. It helps to blend that original blue shadow line into the ball area of the snowman. And notice that the direction that I'm using with my oil pastel is I'm keeping it in a curved shape as I work in this shadow and as I work in the white as well. Now I finally realized that it's going to be hard to show a highlight of white on the white snowman, so I decided to choose yellow to show the highlight. So I reapplied in the highlight area some of the yellow, and then you use the white to help blend in, like we talked about the shadow, you also use the white to help blend in that yellow of the highlight. And if you keep your oil pastel moving in a circular, curved sort of fashion, then you'll notice how it makes the snowman look filled in, and it gives it dimension. Don't be afraid of the shadows and the highlight. I remember growing up, my art teachers would always say, don't be afraid of the dark, meaning don't be afraid to put in the shadows and don't be afraid to put in the highlights. Okay, and at this point, once you've got the white and your shadows and highlights on your snowman filled in, then move on to doing some of the details like the arm, the stick arms, and like the carrot nose and the eyes and the scarf and everything. But don't forget when you're doing these to also apply where the highlight would be and where the shadow would be. And so when you're choosing what color to use for your highlight, I recommend using both the yellow and the white because it'll show up on some of these colors better. So use the combined yellow and white to show the highlights for the detail areas that are not white, and then continue to use the blue as the shadow color. And then you use whatever the color is, like for instance here my scarf is green, and so in order to blend in the shadow and the highlights, then I use the green to help blend in where I chose to put the shadows and the highlights. Now remember, as you're trying to decide where, think through where's the light source and where does it hit my snowman or my scarf or the arm of my snowman. The other suggestion I have for you is when you're choosing what to do with the pieces like the hat or like the scarf, just choose one solid color, because what we're really working on is adding in the shadow and the highlight to it, and then you use that solid color to help blend what's happening with the shadow and the highlights. So don't get too overboard with some sort of a pattern with the scarves. We're just trying to get the shading and the highlights down with this project. All right, once you're happy with your snowman and the accessories on the snowman, move on to what's going on in the rest of the picture. So in this sense, I've got some other piles of snowballs, which is great because I can start practicing even more my shadows and my highlights on these snowballs. I already kind of did it with the snowman, so I'm pretty good at this now. I put the shadow on and then I fill in with the white, and then I'll add in the yellow highlight on the tops of it, and you use that white color to help blend the shadows and the highlights if you need to. Now the final step is to add in the cast shadow. So you need to think through, where's my light source? It hits my object, and then project the shadow from the object onto the background, the ground area. So your final step is to cast the shadow that's interacting with the background area. Okay, at this point now I'm showing you how I did it on some of the other snowmen. Again, if you want to at some point, go ahead and start coloring in your snowman. I'm just giving you some ideas of how I did mine. Again, just going over kind of the process that I used. Fill in your light source with the yellow and the white, and then outline your snowman of where the white is in the snow, the 3 layers of the snowman, and then figure out where the shadow is and put that in to help give some definition. And then we use the white to help blend in the highlight of the yellow with the shadow of the blue. And remember also, some other tricks would be to make sure to move your oil pastel in a curved manner so it helps to form the balls of the snowman. Remember, you also help form the dimension by adding in the shadows and the highlights. So don't be afraid to put in that blue for the shadow and work it into that actual snowman. And don't be afraid to put in that yellow highlight and help blend it into the actual snowman. And then once you've got your snowman complete, the body of your snowman, then do the details. And as you're doing the details, don't forget to fill in the shadow lines. And once you've chosen your single color for your, whether it's your carrot nose or your stick arms or your mittens or whatnot, then once you've added that shadow, use the main color that you want to help blend that shadow in so it doesn't look such like a hard line. And then don't forget to add in your highlights at the end. Once you've completed all the details on your snowman, then do the area surrounding your snowman in the background. In this one, it's a bench and trying to make it look like ice. The other, you could even make it look like it's snowing if you wanted. The sky's the limit, but do your main snowman first. Don't forget your light source, and then once you've got those two things taken care of, then move on to what you're going to do in the background area. Now, after you've done your snowman and most of your background area, then you want to add in the cast shadow, where there's a shadow interacting with the background. Again, you think through, oh, okay, where's the light source? And it's hitting my object, which is the snowman, and then that's the direction of the cast shadow, and you add that in to add the final dimension on your project. Okay, here's the last one. Again, color in your light source with the white and the yellow. Go ahead and make a halo too if you'd like. And then take the white and outline the snowman and fill it in. Also take the blue shadow and fill in the shadow parts and fill in the highlight parts. And remember to keep your oil pastel moving in the direction to make it look like a ball. So do some curves with it. Same with the way that the shadow hits and the way the highlight hits. Make sure that it makes sense for the shape that you are filling in. All right, and then once you've gotten your highlights and your shadows on your snowman portion, then you can start working on your details. Again, apply the shadow area first to the detail area, and then use the color to help blend in the shadow area. And then from there, add in the highlights. And once you're done with your snowman figure and accessories, then color in the background areas. And don't forget to fill in the cast shadow area. And then you will be done. Okay, now you're done. So go ahead and put your oil pastels back into your art bag and zip it on up and put it back into your art toolkit. Once you've done that, go ahead and put your brown paper back into your art toolkit as well. Thanks for a fun project.